All right, this is just getting absolutely wild. I just can't believe some of the stuff that I'm watching on this coverage. I've been watching quite a bit of this coverage, and I ended up having to come back to this because I was just watching this whole section and listening to this, and I just can't believe what we're hearing. It's just absolutely crazy what's going on down there right now with some of these officials and some of the problems they're having. And obviously it's a disaster situation, but you can't have stuff like this. You just can't. So I want you to listen to this next section because this is wild to listen to. So let's listen to this next section, and then we'll cover it in a minute here. But I'll play this. It's about a 5-minute clip with some commentary. So here we go.
At your reactions, not the words, Alex, but the grunting when you heard this really kind of told the story. It really, in the middle of something like this, I mean, I just looked, just a very, myopic view. I looked in my office, and everybody got the alert, and nobody knew what to do. I mean, and this is just a microcosm of what's going on everywhere in the city, where, you see this, and, you're right, it just sends panic. And then what happens when the next alert was we made a mistake. And now what's going to happen with the next alert? And, seconds matter. So this was a huge screw-up, as you said. But I have to tell you, you guys did an interview Tuesday night with Rick Caruso. And Rick Caruso was critical of leadership in the city and the state. And I know there were certain people who called Rick Caruso after that and said, boy, that was a mistake to say that. Well, that has really kind of taken sail, things that he said. And there are a lot of people in this town who are really now critical of the priorities that some of the leaders sent, from why are we, and it's not like people are anti-bird or anti-fish, but when you have these sanctuaries to protect animals and you're not focused on reservoirs and water and things like that, I think it's really brought things to a head. And there are just a lot of angry people in town, and I didn't know they'd get angry still in the middle of the fire, but I'm really hearing it.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard, but Rick Caruso, Harvey, joined us. Alex set up that interview during the 2 o'clock hour today, and he responded to that, basically saying, these are just all excuses at this point. This is still a disgrace. This shouldn't have happened. He did say that it wouldn't have prevented the widespread destruction, but it would have mitigated what we are reporting on, and what I know your team is reporting on too. So at TMZ, you've obviously talked a lot about the celebrity homes that have been lost, but this goes much deeper than that.
Oh, it's fundamental. And the other thing is, just as somebody who's been in this town most of his life, I'm just looking at some of the reactions, and look, I'm not trying to get political here because I'm really not in this sense. But, man, when Karen Bass was asked the question about what she thinks, what she wants to say to the city of L.A., and she didn't say anything, it was breathtaking to watch something like that. And I really do think that people are focused on it. I mean, we've seen the way leaders are judged during crises, and I couldn't believe that. It was it was a softball question, and not to hear an answer to that, and then to see Governor Newsome kind of on the defensive when that woman came up to him when he was getting into his SUV, and I just think that I'm surprised that in the middle of the fire you're starting to kind of feel this groundswell, but I'm really seeing it.
Yeah, and Harvey's referring to, there was a moment, if you hadn't seen it, where Mayor Bass was getting off her plane coming back from Ghana. A reporter came up to her who happened to be, I think, on the same plane or nearby, threw a camera in her face. I don't know if she knew who he was. He's from Ireland, and he was asking her questions, and instead of responding at all, she just stood there, and it went for several minutes. That clip went viral, promoted in part by Elon Musk. Our interview with Rick Caruso went viral, promoted in part by Elon Musk. Donald Trump talking about it, and it seems like especially a lot of the right-wing accounts are really pushing this, but it's going beyond even just some of the conservative media, and there's a lot of folks. And when you have incidents like what we just had, this alert going out, it raises questions about competence. It raises questions about who's in charge, can you do your job, and there's already so many people that are feeling concerned about that, and they don't see their leaders. I mean, I appreciate everybody's busy, and you know, but we've asked for days to talk to Governor Newsome, and they've said no every time. We've asked for days to talk to Mayor Bass. She has been doing a couple press conferences a day, but hasn't been doing one-on-one interviews. I mean, they have an opportunity to get in front of this and talk to people directly for whatever reason, and they're all busy, and I get that, and you got to balance everything. But you know, we certainly would welcome the opportunity to talk to them, and we've had respectful conversations in the past, and would appreciate getting to hear their perspective, because in a vacuum, when you don't speak, other people fill the space, and you've certainly seen a lot of people referring to what Caruso has been talking about.
And that's a diplomatic way of saying, you know, you run the city, and the city is watching local news because that's where we're getting our information.
Right.
So talk to us.
Right.
And, you know, again,
Newsome, instead of doing an interview with us, chose to do an interview with Anderson Cooper, and with respect to him, and the reach of CNN is great, but people that are really focused on the life-saving information right now are watching not only us, but all the local news stations looking for information from their leaders.
And Newsome's answer to Anderson Cooper, oh my goodness.
We got another one.
What's that?
Disregard a last evacuation warning. It was for Kenneth fires. Now we got another warning of that.
Oh my God.
It's another where we made a mistake one?
Yes.
You know, and can I just say, I do think, you know, one of the problems is I wish Elon Musk.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that, because you just heard that, and literally while they're commenting on how confusing it is that these alerts are going out, they got another one to correct the original mistake alert. And that was just a crazy sequence when you think about it, because they're talking about the competency, they're talking about what the senior officials are doing, and then right in the middle of the broadcast, they get an emergency alert that is canceling the mistaken emergency alert. And as somebody who's gone through those wildfires, as I commented in the last video, those alerts become very, I hate the term PTSD because I think it's overused in our society, but they become very concerning when you're constantly getting them. And I had two phones at the time. I had one for work and my personal phone. And when we were going through the emergency alerts for the wildfires that evacuated us, those things become very frightening. And it's incredible that they got that on the air and that was all captured live while they're literally commenting on the competency and what's going on in the organization. Then when we get back to some of the original comments about what I guess LA is doing in terms of why there isn't the water needed is because there's I guess it's called the smelt fish, but they've been letting water run into the ocean rather than capturing it to prevent any damage to this fish. And I heard a great comment from somebody in one of the interviews where, like, why can't they do both? How can they not do both things? How can they not conserve this fish and find a way to have a stockpile of water for situations just like this? And then you take some of the comments about what's gone on with Mayor Bass. And I saw that interview, and if you haven't seen it, you should try and find it. But she was at the airport coming back, and they were asking her, and she just stood there looking off into the distance. And that is not good leadership. That is terrible leadership. You should have a comment, and you should have something to say, and you should know you're going to be asked these questions. And she does not look competent at all in this situation, and it's really mind-boggling to even watch somebody behave the way she did. She just ignored these questions and just walked off. And then you talk about Newsome going on to CNN and not worrying more about the local news, and that just goes to show you that these people are just playing these political games. And again, I'm not trying to pick one side or the other necessarily, but obviously in this one situation where Newsome's bothering to go on CNN with Anderson Cooper, you know, you have to ask yourself, is he doing that to have a national platform because he's trying to sell himself, or is he doing that because he's trying to speak to the people that of the state that he's the governor of? And it's just a really bad look for both of them at a time when so many people are being affected by this. And then again, I saw that Caruso, I listened to that Caruso interview live, and yeah, he was critical of what was going on, but when you get these senior officials who are making these blunders around who they're talking to and who they're not talking to, or even not even giving a statement, it lends credence to the idea that they're self-serving and don't know what they're doing. And then literally live, you hear them get an emergency alert in order to cancel the previous mistaken emergency alert. And again, having gone through those alerts, how are you supposed to know what applies to you and what doesn't? Am I now getting a cancellation that doesn't apply to me? Did the original one apply to me? Why did I get the original one? How am I supposed to know? And it's just a tremendously bad look for those senior administrators, because ultimately the emergency management teams are the ones that need to handle things. They're the ones that need to be there. The mayor does not necessarily need to be in an emergency room for 18 hours a day watching these planes get deployed. There are emergency services, there's police chiefs, there's fire chiefs. All the people that are in charge of that administration can handle that and can make those decisions. What the people need is these senior elected officials to be front and center and helping direct traffic and guide people and telling them where shelters are and you know, letting them know what's going on with some of these things, rather than hiding behind, you know, Anderson Cooper interviews or saying, well, I'm doing something. I'm in the emergency room. Well, yes, you should be getting updates about the emergency, but you're not going to be making decisions and overruling fire chiefs or the people who are deciding where to drop these things. And the mayor's not making those decisions. And the fact that she can't answer questions and is just hiding behind all this is just stunning. It's just tragic to watch. And I think there's going to be a lot of questions after this all comes up, and there likely should be. So if I see anything more, I'll comment on it, but I wanted to record that whole sequence because it was just absolutely wild to watch in real time. It was crazy. Just crazy.